Hello and a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be watching today, and a huge welcome to today's Postgrad Insight session. We're joined today by Heriot-Watt University. This is the first of many webinars over the next 4 to 6 weeks, courtesy of Heriot-Watt. And today we're going to be starting with the MSc in Mathematics programs, which is an exciting program, one we've not heard of from the Heriot-Watt brand before on a webinar. So this will be totally exclusive and new. So very excited to find out more information on that. Before I hand you over to Professor Des Johnston, a reminder that today's session is live. If you have any questions, any concerns, please use the chat facility. Alternatively, please email webinars@postgradsolutions.com. If you are watching on social media today on one of our social platforms, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, or any of the other social channels, please remind yourself that it's not live on there instantly. We will not get any feedback, and you do need to email webinars@postgradsolutions.com or use the messenger facility, and we'll endeavour to come around to you after the session has finished. If you do miss any of this or any of this has technical issues, please watch on demand. We will send you the video by tomorrow, close of business. But for now, I'd like to hand you over to Professor Des Johnston, who will be then handing over to another academic, and then you'll get the chance to hear from a student also. I'll be back for the Q&A at the end. Des, over to you.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. We're going to be talking today about the mathematics MSc programs that are on offer at Heriot-Watt University at Riccarton in Edinburgh. Just to give you some idea of how things are going to work, I'm going to speak for about 10 or 15 minutes by way of a general introduction, both to Heriot-Watt, so there will be a little bit of history and geography of Heriot-Watt, and then I'm going to talk in some detail about the different MSc programs that we offer. One thing the MSc programs do is they link into the interests and the research that's done in the maths department. And Michela is going to take over in the second part of this webinar to talk about that and highlight the links between our courses and the research that we do. And then, no offense either to myself or Michela, maybe the most interesting part will be at the end. We've managed to rope in a current MSc student, Isaac Armstrong, who's going to tell you about what it's really like to be a master's student and study at Heriot-Watt University. And we're not paying him enough to lie about it. So you'll get the unvarnished truth about what things are like. So let me start by setting the scene about Heriot-Watt. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history and where we are. I'm going to talk about our MSc courses. Then Michela, as I've said, will pick up and talk about the mathematics research. And finally, Isaac will talk about the experience of being a master's student here at Heriot-Watt. So Heriot-Watt has been around for a long time, since 1821. It started as a Scottish College of Arts, and that's manufacturing arts rather than fine arts. And it started with a conversation between a couple of friends. A gentleman called Leonard Horner, who was a rich linen merchant and wanted to spend a lot of the money that he had earned on education. And a friend of his, Robert Bryson, who was a watchmaker. He was a watchmaker to Queen Victoria, actually. And Bryson was bemoaning the lack of opportunity for the very able apprentices that he had in the watchmaking industry to study technical things and mathematics. So it's interesting that the concerns of 200 years ago are still the concerns of today, allowing people an opportunity to study mathematics and to apply that mathematics to making things. Those are still concerns for Heriot-Watt. As a consequence of this conversation, they set up this College of Arts for teaching apprentices mathematical and technical skills. It developed over the years. Initially, some money was picked up from a trust, the Watt Institution, in the mid-1800s, and it became a Watt Institution. And some years later, they also got money from James Heriot's Educational Trust. James Heriot was the jeweller to James I of England and James VI of Scotland. And a lot of the money has been devoted to educational causes over the years. So this Edinburgh School of Arts that developed into the Watt Institute and eventually Heriot-Watt University in the 1960s was the world's first mechanics institute. And we've been specialising in technical and engineering education ever since. Where are we? The mathematics MSc courses are at the Edinburgh campus of Heriot-Watt University. That's in Riccarton in the west of Edinburgh. So it's a new 1990s vintage campus that's on the outskirts of Edinburgh on a greenfield site. Isaac can tell you a little bit about what it's like going out there and studying there. Edinburgh, of course, is in Scotland, so this is a very misleading picture of Scotland. It doesn't have any clouds. Well, not very many clouds. I don't know if you can see my cursor. I don't think you can. So we're nestling just underneath the clouds on the right-hand side of Scotland there. As Isaac will be able to tell you, Scotland has the best weather in the world. Heriot-Watt is an international institution now. We've got campuses in Dubai and Malaysia, as well as other Scottish campuses in the Borders in Calashiels and up in Orkney and Stromness. But your courses for the Masters will be based at Riccarton in Edinburgh. What are these courses? What do we offer? There are various mathematics MScs on offer. Most of them are one-year courses, the MSc in mathematics, the MSc in applied mathematical sciences, an MSc in computational mathematics and data analysis, an MSc in mathematical biology, ecology and medicine, and also an MSc in applied mathematical sciences with climate and environmental modelling. We also offer a 2-year applied mathematical sciences MSc. The idea of this is it makes the MSc accessible to people who might not have quite the right mathematical background to start study immediately on a master's course. So if you're coming in from a different subject, this offers you the opportunity to pick up effectively undergraduate courses that would fill in gaps in your background knowledge and then proceed in your second year to the MSc, usually in applied mathematical sciences, but it can be any of the other MScs as well. It's entirely up to the students themselves to choose what to do in their second year once they've studied the first year courses to pick up their background. So those are the courses that we offer, the programs that we offer. What does the setup look like inside each one of these? I'll pick one as an example, and then I'll highlight the differences to the other programs, the other different MSc courses that we have here in the list. So here we go. The structure of the academic year at Heriot-Watt is a semester one. There are 2 semesters. So the first one runs September to December. The second one runs January to April. So it finishes roughly around about Easter time. And then the third semester is when you would do a research project and a dissertation. So that's from May to July over the summer months. You'd be finishing in August, and then there'd be graduation after that in one of the graduation ceremonies. In each semester, you'd be studying 4 courses in the taught courses in semester 1 and 2. So for applied mathematical sciences, there'd be one mandatory course, this modelling and tools course, at the start of semester 1 that provides you with a lot of the tools and techniques for the other courses that follow. Everything else is optional. So you get a choice of 3 from, and I'm a mathematician, I can't count, 3 from 5 in the first semester and 4 from 5 in the second semester. So there's the opportunity to follow your own interests in the different courses. For the other programs, some of these courses are no longer optional. So if you're doing the mathematical biology and ecology courses, the mathematical ecology course would be a mandatory course for that MSc. That's the difference between the different MSc courses. And another thing I think that's worth emphasizing is that we make sure that we refresh our courses regularly to keep them up to date and interesting. For instance, this program structure for applied mathematical sciences here is the structure for this current year. So this is the one that the students are studying at the moment. Next year, the stochastic simulation course is being replaced by something that could hardly be more topical, a course on artificial intelligence. So that's the mathematics of machine learning and large language models, which have been very much in the news recently. What does your timetable look like? once you're here and studying on one of these programs. So typically, a course will have 4 contact hours per week. 2 or 3 of those might be face-to-face lectures with the lecturer. There might be a tutorial session where you'd be looking at pencil and paper problems. And depending on the nature of the course, there might be a computer lab as well, where you get a chance to practice with relevant software and solve problems with computers. And of course, the lecturers also offer office hours for contact with the students. I think one of the advantages of Heriot-Watt in comparison with some other institutions is we're still relatively small as a department. So there's a chance to have good direct contact with the universities, staff, and with the lecturers on your course. So you'll be able to speak to your lecturers, you'll have a chance to ask them questions, and you'll have a chance to go and discuss things with them for any of the courses that you're studying on the MSc. In addition to that, I'm not sure if I put this in my slides. As usual, I'm very badly prepared for anything. There's personal tutors assigned to each of the MSc students, and the idea is that they would be the first point of contact for any issues or any problems that the student might have, and will be able to put them in touch with the relevant people at the university for sorting things out. So again, that's an advantage of the relatively small size of Heriot-Watt as an institution. You're in close contact with the staff, and there's personal contact with them. People always ask about assessments for the courses. So the students are studying these 4 courses per semester. There's a credit system at Scottish universities. Each one of these courses is worth 15 of these credits. 120 credits plus a dissertation that's worth 60 credits provides sufficient credit to obtain the MSc at the end. And for each course in each semester, you'd probably have some sort of in-semester test, perhaps online, perhaps in person, and an exam at the end. So each semester has got an exam diet at the end of it. You don't get everything lumped on you at the end of the course. Some of the courses, by their nature, are assessed entirely by coursework. And it's possible, again, depending on the nature of the course, that there might be some group projects and group presentations. Not for all of the courses. That's a possibility as well. Anything else I want to say about assessment? The dissertations are done over the summer. They'd be submitted towards the end of July, and everything is done and dusted by August. The other important question, of course, is how much does all of this cost? And how do you get in the first place? So what we're looking for is a good mathematical background and good mathematical skills. So that means an honours degree in mathematics or statistics or some other relevant subject. And we say, when we say good, we mean 2.2 or better. And we'd be looking for reasonable marks in relevant mathematical subjects. For non-native speakers of English, there'd be an IELTS requirement of 6.5 or the equivalent in different schemes. For September 25 or January 2026, the tuition fees are shown here. So for UK students, it's of the order of £10,000 full-time, of the order of £5,000 part-time. And for international students, it's roughly double that as well. What about the general environment at Heriot-Watt? Michela is going to tell you a little bit in a minute, you'll be pleased to hear, about research-led teaching. So we think it's very important that the staff who are teaching you in the MSc are teaching you from the point of view of their own interests and enthusiasms. They'll be connected to the research that they're going to be telling you about, and they'll be at the forefront of it. Heriot-Watt's also got excellent support structures for mathematical studies. We've got a maths gym. That's a maths assistance hub for maths students of all levels. So not just undergraduate students, but also master's students as well. We've got excellent facilities for study. There's a nice picture at the top here of the grid. So that's a building for student study. We've got excellent sports facilities on campus. The Scottish National Performance Centre, the Oriam Sports Centre, is based at Heriot-Watt University, and students as well as staff have got access to the facilities there. Many master's students are interested in continuing further with their studies to PhDs. So I thought I'd say a few words before I passed on to Michela, who'd be talking more about the research side of things, about the PhDs in mathematics at Heriot-Watt. There are numerous PhD positions at Heriot-Watt. We're members of several centres for doctoral training at the university. There's a very strong collaboration with the University of Edinburgh. There is, in effect, a joint graduate school in mathematics with the University of Edinburgh, and co-supervision of PhD students with Edinburgh academics as well. Of course, not every master's student is interested in proceeding with further academic studies. There are other things in life. So I thought I'd give you a list of things, jobs, that other master's students have gone on to study in recent years. People have gone to work in the automotive industry and aerospace. So there's a strong aerospace base in Edinburgh with Leonardo here. They've gone to work in electrical engineering firms and robotics. Edinburgh is also a major centre for robotics work and research in the UK. Some have gone to work for the government, working in research and climate science and other things. Folk have gone to work in the medical industries, in pharmacy, producing pharmacological chemicals. People have gone to work for logistics and banks and insurance. Edinburgh is a big centre for banking and insurance as well. And some students have gone on to research and even teaching. Just thinking back to the master's students that I've supervised over the past 2 or 3 years, or 4 or 5 years actually myself, I think a couple have gone on to do PhDs. So a couple of European nationals have gone on to do PhDs in the United Kingdom. One has gone to work in banking and insurance, and another one came in as a computer programmer, did an MSc, was offered, I think, 3 or 4 PhD places. They were very good, and decided that they were better staying as a computer programmer and went off to a better paid job as a computer programmer with their MSc. So here's a nice wee picture of career paths. I was just messing around here with PowerPoint, and I'm not very good at PowerPoint, so I couldn't work out how to do a nice looking bendy arrow. So we've only got all of the straight arrows here. There are various career paths through an MSc. So not everybody follows the academic path. There are the jobs in industry, finance, research, teaching, and the civil service. So there have been several of our students who have gone to work in research type jobs in the civil service as well. I'm nearly done, you'll be pleased to hear. Contact details. The program director for most of our mathematics MSCs is Stefan Kloos. So he'll probably be the guy that you'd be in contact with at the application stage if you have any academic questions. Jonathan Sherritt is another program director here, and numerous members of staff in mathematics, including myself, are involved in teaching and supervising the MSc projects as well. I don't think I've got anything more to say. So this would be a good moment to pass things over to Michela to tell you more about the research environment in the mathematics department and how this is connected with our MSc courses. Thanks very much for listening in. So I'll hand over now. Back to the professionals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As Des said, I am Michela Ottobre and I am a professor in the mathematics department, and I will be talking a little bit more about the research in our department, and in particular the research related to the courses that you will be taking in your MSc. But before I get to do that, I wanted to say a couple of things about myself. I wanted to introduce myself and tell you about my career path. where I started from. So I did my PhD at Imperial College a long time ago, in 2012. And then at the end of my PhD, frankly, I was never in doubt what I wanted to do. So I knew that I wanted to do a postdoc and that I wanted to keep doing research. And so I moved on to a postdoc at Warwick. Then I got a prestigious fellowship at Imperial College, and so I was back at Imperial College for about a year, but then I was really very lucky. And so I found my permanent position at Heriot-Watt in 2014, and I have been here at Heriot-Watt since. Heriot-Watt is a fantastic research environment, and I will talk about not only the department, what we do, but I would like to give an idea of how Heriot-Watt is placed nationally and in the national and international research landscape. So perhaps you will understand why I like so much being a Heriot-Watt. It has really given me a lot of research opportunities that I would have not had elsewhere. So what's my work on? I work on stochastic analysis, which means that my research is concerned with the study of phenomena that we model as being random, affected by stochasticity. And in particular, I've been working on stochastic analysis for many years. And more recently, I have started working on mathematical ecology, and in particular on the idea of rewilding, which is considered to be one of the methods at the forefront of the restoration agenda. In 2019, I was awarded a prize, the Whittaker Prize, for my work on stochastic models and on the numerical methods to simulate the stochastic models. And something that I suppose that I didn't expect when I became a lecturer first. Like, I don't know what you imagine the career of the day-to-day job of a mathematician looks like. Something that I didn't know. I always thought that I would be doing research and teaching, and that's true, that I would be supervising PhD students, and that's all part of the job. But something that I didn't particularly know is how much mathematicians do for the international community. And I do serve the mathematical community in a number of ways. So, for example, I am on national panels for the awards of prizes and of research funds. That's a very important part of research. I am a very active member of the European Mathematical Society, and also as a member of the European Mathematical Society, I am in a panel that awards not only funding, but also international prizes. And that creates for me the opportunity to meet so many mathematicians at national and international level. And I do many other similar things. And that, again, I don't know whether it's something that you would expect of the career of a mathematician. That's something I didn't know at the beginning, but it's something I definitely enjoy a lot doing. So now coming a little bit more to mathematics, I suppose that you will have heard very often something that, in fact, I believe in strongly, that mathematics is truly at the core, is really essential to tackle the big challenges of our times. And this is really one of the things in which I believe the most. And you will have heard something like this, like you said, perhaps in different ways. You will have heard how mathematics underlies all of the biggest scientific discoveries and blah, blah, blah. But perhaps this is sometimes, if you come from a degree in mathematics, depending on whether your degree was more or less applied, you don't necessarily see immediately the connection between what you are studying and this sentence. As in, you don't see immediately how what you're studying translates to the big discoveries and to tackling the big challenges of our times. And I would like to think that our MSCs makes that connection particularly clear, that it gives you the mathematical tools, but also that is more focused on the applications. And so in this presentation, when I talk about our research, I will be putting an emphasis. First of all, I will not be presenting all the research that we do, because there are various research areas that we work on, but that's too much for the 15 minutes I have. I will be focusing more on those that are more related to our MSCs, and also will be putting some emphasis on how this relates to real-world challenges. I will say a little bit about your career after the MSc, but not so much, because Des has already mentioned this. I will more talking about this arrow here, the arrow that connects our research activities to your MSc curriculum. So let me get started with this. Abstractly speaking, our research is divided into three main themes, if you want, three main core areas. One is modeling, the other one is the analysis of these models, and the third one is the simulation of the models. And these three areas are very interconnected. It's impossible to split them. And in fact, those that work on modeling very often work also on the analysis and on the simulation and the other way around. Analysis and simulation in particular are typically inextricable. Analysis informs simulation and simulation informs analysis. However, your MSc is more focused on the modeling and on the simulation. However, there are also courses in analysis, and I will explain why, because it's really the bread and butter of everything. But it's much more focused on modeling and simulation. So let me start with giving you some ideas of research topics that we work on and that again are related to your MSc. So some of us, there is a group that works on the simulation and analysis of fluid flows to improve the aerodynamic efficiency. Now, fluids are really everywhere. In particular, they are of paramount importance in climate science. Of course, the atmosphere is made of fluids. And some of us work on analyzing and predicting the dynamics of air and water currents. In particular, we have a group that works on analyzing and simulating the semi-geostrophic equation, for example. The semi-geostrophic equation, so I don't know if the word seems abstract and perhaps unrelated. If you go on the website of the American Meteorological Society, you will see that there is a page dedicated to the semi-geostrophic equation. It is a partial differential equation that describes the large-scale dynamics of rotational atmospheric flows. And it really underpins a lot of the modeling in climate science. We have another group instead that works on vortex-dominated flows. In particular, on understand how the flight of seeds works. And now you might wonder, why do we care about the flight of seeds? Well, first of all, it's interesting per se, because seeds exploit aerodynamic currents in really unique ways. But also, for example, this picture that I have at the top here, it is the picture of Alsomitra macrocarpa, which is a seed which has these wings here that have inspired the design of some of the first manned aircrafts. So while you're studying the seed and the way it flies, you can get inspiration to actually design aircrafts. And the people that work on these sort of things, they work together with plant scientists, as well as aerospace engineers. So truly, through their mathematical methods, in particular perturbation methods, they really form a strong connection between different fields of science, and that's a privilege to be placed in that position. The flight of the, sorry, the flight, the way the dandelion parachutes exploit wind through the formation of a vortex. This is also very unique, and it is subject of intense studies. I hope that this gives you an example of what I mean by vortex-dominated flows. Now, and this is all related to courses on climate modeling, the mathematical biology and numerical analysis, as well as fluid dynamics that we have in the master. Now, let me say something about instead mathematical biology and ecology, which are a very important part of our research, but also of the courses, the master courses. So one area of interest, not only for us, but really at the forefront of national research, and I will come on this later in the next slide, is the study of pattern formation. The pattern formation, when I say pattern, I mean it at every possible level. For example, vegetation patterns in areas that have undergone the certification, or also the very similar equations describe patterns in animal coats. Pattern formation is truly, again, I will come back on this, but it is truly one of those things that crops up in the equations are relatively similar, but they manage to describe really things that are very similar and that at first look you wouldn't put together vegetation patterns and animal coats, but in reality the underlying mechanisms are very similar, and again they can be described to partial differential equations. Some of us work on the very applied side of red squirrel conservation, and in this case they use more ordinary differential equations kind of models in order to understand how substantially how gray squirrels tend to move into areas that were previously dominated by red squirrels. So red squirrels are the squirrels native to Scotland, but unfortunately they die when they get squirrel pox from the gray squirrels. Gray squirrels don't die of squirrel pox, but reds do. And so some of us have built there are people at Heriot-Watt that have designed models that have helped explain and predict the movement of red squirrels and how the squirrel pox would move through the country and affects the red squirrel population. And this has allowed authorities to put in place to basically to take action and to protect the local red squirrel population. So more on mathematical ecology and biology, something that many of us work on is what I would call complexity science. What is complexity science? Complexity science is a very general concept. And again, like in pattern formation, you have sets of equations that at the level of the equations, they might look abstract, but that they really end up describing things that look very different to the naked eye. What I mean by complexity science is the study of the way in which consensus or coordinated motion arises in a large group of individuals or particles through communication, for example, or rather through interaction between the particles, between the individuals. And when I say particles, I mean it in a mathematical sense. So this is abstract. When I say particles, I could mean fish. Like here I have a picture of fish schooling. If you put 3 or 4 fish alone, they are not going to do schooling. But when you have a lot of fish, they start interacting with each other. And this interaction is what produces the emergence of these large-scale patterns. And these large-scale patterns are very important to understand and predict for many different reasons. First of all, of course, we are all interested in phenomena like schooling or flocking of birds. But if you think of locusts and the way they move together, destroying agricultural fields, then it's very important to try and understand if that's going to happen. And so it can help prevent undesired effect of this coordinating motion. It can also, however, on the positive side, some of the studies, they have they have helped design public spaces better because they are also relevant to the motion of crowds, for example. And so I don't know if you have noticed, but in the most modern public spaces, the ticket kiosk is no longer on the side, it's in the middle. And that's because they have seen that that actually allows the movement of crowds in a more fluid way. These sort of methods are also used, for example, to study the spread of fake news. But what's important is that, and that I would like to highlight now, but I will go back on this, the exact same equations that describe all these type of equations, that describe all these phenomena that I've been talking about, they also underlie AI algorithms. AI algorithms can just be seen as a large interacting particle system. Mathematical modeling of plant growth, I put it in the same slide because in some sense it belongs to complexity science, but it can also be viewed as a topic on its own. And so we have got people that work on partial differential equations that can describe really most of the aspects of plant growth, from the uptake of water to the growth of the actual plant tissue and so on and so forth. So now I've given you some examples of substantially the research, the applications of the research, not just the applications, because we work on the applications as well as the theory, but I have focused so far the presentation more on the application side. I would like to talk about the tools. It's very important. We are mathematicians and we have got to have the tools to develop these models. And so you have various courses in your MSCs that, like in every trade, you've got to be able to use your tools. And this is what mathematicians do. We use our tools. What are our tools? PD theory, ODE theory, optimization, numerical methods, sampling methods, algorithms of every sort. So let me start from optimization. So your optimization course is focused mostly on optimization algorithms. But it's very important to understand that those algorithms are also used, for example, for the design of new materials. And every time you hear training a neural network, which is now a very fancy thing, that corresponds to solving an optimization problem. So if you want to do AI, you have got to do optimization. But again, not just for AI, optimization underlies a lot of other things, but truly optimization is a needed step in any AI algorithm. Then there are more classic courses if we want, but I mean, they are still the building blocks of mathematics. Functional analysis, PD theory, ODE theory. I like to view mathematics really as the language of science that allows you to connect different fields of science. And PD theory, ODE theory, they are really the sentences of that science, of the language. And they really help you make science come alive and describe it properly. The other set of courses that are more on the on the underpinning mathematical tools, they are courses on numerical analysis and sampling methods. And again, next year we have the course on artificial intelligence algorithms. What I also wanted to highlight is that in our courses, you will have the, throughout the degree, I suppose, you will have the opportunity to develop skills that are truly key, both inside the academia, if you want to go on and do a PhD and work further in research, but also if you want to go to industry. And this, I think that many students possibly don't see how important these skills will be later. So we try to make it relevant also during our MSc. We try to give you the skills that you will need to use afterwards. And these are presentation skills, group work, writing technical content, and programming skills. So for example, the whole of the optimization course uses Python. I should say that perhaps one thing that I forgot to say earlier is that while all these courses, like these courses here, those that are more focused on the underpinning mathematical methods, they are more focused on the underpinning mathematical methods, but they tend to be taught in context. So for example, the optimization course, it will mention applications to image denoising, data classification. And here I'm not going to talk too much about image analysis, but because it's not so much related to the MSc content, but we do have, for example, also a large group here that works on imaging. So now, where are we nationally? Heriot-Watt, where is nationally? So together with the University of Edinburgh, we combine as the Maxwell Institute. The Maxwell Institute is the first centre for mathematics in Scotland and the third in the UK, according to Research Power Metrics. And this is a great achievement of which we are extremely proud. Our research, so here this datum is from the Times Higher Education Research Power Metric, but it's mirrored also in other ranking, in national and international rankings. Overall, mathematics at Heriot-Watt is second in Scotland and seventh in the UK. One of the things that really helps us to stay ahead of the curve is the fact that we coordinate the activities of the International Center for Mathematical Sciences. And let me explain what this is if you've never heard of this before. The International Center for Mathematical Sciences is one of the three big UK research infrastructure. It is a large conference center that attracts world-leading scientists every year that come here for workshops, for visiting periods, which means that us as researchers, our PhD students, and if you want, you MSc students, you can go and attend seminars and talk to these people and learn from them. And that also gives us the visibility because that also means that they come and get to know us. So what is what does it mean that it is one of the three big UK mathematical infrastructures? The other two are the the Newton Institute in Cambridge, which is not a conference center. They only host long-term programs. And another one is in Warwick, which is more focused on complexity science. But basically, we are fortunate enough that at national level, we host one of these three big research infrastructures. And these are really the only three in the nation. We host a thriving postgraduate community with a very active PhD program and various PhD courses. And finally, more recently, there is this new venture, the Mathematics Driven Innovation Center. So this is a center that we are creating in order to promote links between our research and the research in industry. And this is something that we are just starting now, but they is picking up pace rather quickly. And again, the sort of gives visibility to our research to a different audience, namely to people in industry, but at the same time helps us shape our research somehow in order to make sure that we keep solving problems that are relevant to what I was saying before, to the big challenges of our times. And with this, I think that I am done. So I will stop sharing and pass the microphone, so to speak, to Isaac Armstrong, who is one of our current students.
Okay, yes, thanks, Michela. I'm going to talk a little bit about who I am, what my background is, and then talk about some of the courses that I've been doing, and then about Edinburgh and maybe about what I'm doing in the future. So, yeah, so I'm Isaac. I'm doing the Masters in Mathematical Biology, Ecology, and Medicine. I've just finished second semester, so I'm all done with exams, and now I'm going to start doing my Master's project with Michela, actually, over the summer. My background is I did my bachelor's in pure maths at UCL in London and graduated in 2022. And then I had a couple of years off where I was sort of teaching English and traveling and doing stuff like that and working on farms. And this is really where I made the connection between biology and ecology and maths. And so I ended up applying for the course here because of Heriot-Watt's great reputation with maths, but particularly in mathematical biology and ecology. About the courses, I know Des shared earlier the courses for the applied mathematics and spoke about how some of them are mandatory, some of them are optional. For me, I had I think in term one, I had 3 mandatory modules that were specifically because they were related to mathematical biology. And then 1 optional one, I chose optimization, which Michela was talking about. And then I also, in second semester, I did a couple of others that were compulsory, and then I had 2 more optional ones. And everything they're saying is true. The skills that you get from doing all these different variety of modules, wide variety of skills that I've learned and improved. Particularly, I feel like I want to talk about the programming. Programming is not something that I hadn't really done any before I started the masters, and it was a bit daunting when I started. And I even called up the university before beginning and got put in touch with Jonathan Sherritt, who Des mentioned, who ended up being my tutor. And he sort of reassured me that there's a lot of support in place if you haven't done much programming. Crash courses in the first term that are part of any course that uses programming. And it actually becomes very manageable and enjoyable, and is a really essential skill if you do want to, if you want to do well, and if you want to continue doing research. And then, yeah, so the staff have been very supportive. I found the experience here has, and I'm not just saying this, compared to my undergrad experience, which was during COVID, and maybe I'm an undergrad part of a bigger cohort, my experience here with the staff has been much better, much more personable staff, easy to talk to, and going out of their way to really support me. And that's been great, and I really appreciate that. With regards to Edinburgh, even though I'm from the UK, I'd never been to Edinburgh before starting. When I spoke to friends and family about coming to Edinburgh in September, everyone was very positive, said it was just such a nice city, and it's really true. It's like a city that's not too big, it's not too small, lots of green spaces, outside areas. If you're into hiking, then Scotland's just like the perfect place to be. Lots of history, lots of cultural things going on all the time that you should get involved in. The SU, the Student Union, is really, really good for putting on events on campus and in the city. And per my request, I kept saying there's not enough postgrad specific events in term one. They've now in term two put on lots of events that are specifically for postgrads, where maybe if you're a bit older, you might meet people who are more your age, which I found beneficial. The uni, as Des said, is a bit outside the city. There's lots of good transport links. So either you can get a bus, there's buses going all the time, or what I do, there's a really nice, because I live in the city centre, there's a really nice canal route where you can cycle. And so I cycle every day to uni, which is 30, 40 minutes. Sometimes it's faster than the bus. That would be what I'd recommend. It keeps you fit. And so, yeah, Edinburgh in general is just a great place to be. And then maybe I should talk about what my plans are after. So as I said, I'm doing my master's project over the summer with Michela, and then I'm actually starting a PhD at Heriot-Watt with Michela as well in September, October. And a big part of that is because of the community feel I've got within the maths department. Here, a big part of it is the fact that I can stay in Edinburgh. As Michela was talking about, the research and the connections with the University of Edinburgh and the Maxwell Institute being sort of a UK leading, world leading place to do maths is like a major part of why I've stayed. And yeah, I couldn't think of anything better that I would want to be doing. So yes, I think that's about all I want to say, and happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Isaac. If I could just keep you on screen for a moment, because I just want to elaborate on a few things that you've said. Apologies, Des and Michela. I'm just going to start with Isaac quickly. You've obviously been on a journey. You know, we spoke earlier off there. You're from the southwest of the UK. You've then gone to London. You studied at UCL. Then you've gone to Edinburgh. There will be a lot of domestic students, UK students, that will feel they go on a very different journey to international students. But as we were talking earlier, that's a huge journey, isn't it? To go from the southwest to London, be at a well-established uni like UCL, and then to kind of almost have the courage to then go, right, I'm going to go to another uni. I'm going to go to a leading university within ecology, within biology, to go to Edinburgh and then stay there. How nervous did that make you to begin with, and how happy are you that you made that step?
Yeah, it was a bit nervous because it was, like I said, I hadn't really been to Edinburgh before. But I think what has been really nice is, like you're saying, with the difference between international and domestic students, it is a different experience, but it is also that it is nervous for everyone. And so some of my closest friends here are international students who, like, they live on campus and have come from, I've got, friends, close friends from like Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, and from India. And it's like, you can bond over those sort of shared experiences, even if you come from totally different parts of the world.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. Different cultures, from Saudi Arabia, from other parts of the world as well, some of your best friends. Um, you mentioned earlier that you're living in the heart of the city centre in Edinburgh, and I've been to Heriot-Watt before. It is on the outskirts. It's very conveniently placed, very close to the airport, which is fantastic. But you mentioned as well how accessible it is from the city centre. Edinburgh can be an expensive city, so actually having the campuses outside of the city centre definitely helps. But how easy has it made it that you can cycle on a really accessible route to get to the campus? Obviously, gets the calorie count high as well, which is great. So
Yeah.
all these little things help, presumably.
Yeah, no, it's been a big sort of part of at the beginning when I was thinking of where to live, I was obviously choosing to live in the city, and I was like, oh wait, actually the university is quite far away. But then actually it's become a really good part because every day I'm cycling for like over an hour, and it's just sort of a break. It's a nice relax from, instead of just sitting on the bus and sort of maybe you can do work on the bus if you feel like but it's actually a really nice time just to get away and be with your thoughts and be outside. And it's definitely helped my mental health, and it's kept me fit. And it's and when you start, there's also like a lot in the city. I always saw in September sort of deals of how you can get a bike and some stuff. So it's really accessible to, if you did want to get a bike, to be able to do it. Or if you're just getting on the bus, then it's fine because there's sort of it's pretty affordable.
Excellent. For now, thank you, Isaac. We'll come back to you shortly. Des, if I can come to you at this point, it feels like an age ago we last heard from you, but
Lucky you.
thank you for waiting patiently. I want to talk about the university because many years ago now, it was actually voted international university in the UK, I believe, or you study in the UK university by the Times or Higher Times, something like that. So there are presumably a lot of international students and a strong international culture at the university.
Oh, there's a very strong international student.
How important is that, especially when international students are looking to come to the UK? You're moving from your home, you're moving from your comfort zone.
I think it's very important for the international students who come here because there's already a community of international students. And as Isaac has said, there's a lot of interaction between the different communities. So people find friends from all over the world at Heriot-Watt University when they come here. It's certainly a much less Scottish and a much less English environment than some other Scottish universities, certainly Edinburgh University. I was surprised when I first came here myself a very, 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 very long time ago at just how many international students there were, both undergraduate and postgraduate.
Yeah, and talk to me about the university is very big, and it might be a Michela question, but one of the questions we had come in was about the class sizes. Presumably one of the reasons why Isaac moved from UCL to Edinburgh would have been that kind of personal one-to-one element, that the class sizes are a lot more smaller, more
Yeah,
personal.
the master's
That will
class.
obviously help their education, won't it?
Yeah. So Michela, the courses that you've been lecturing, the class sizes?
Sorry, no, actually, sorry. I teach first and second year courses, so they're the class sizes are big. With MSc courses, they are bigger, but still, I mean, they are not insane. I still learn the names of. I try to learn the names of my students as much as I can, but then I have 114 first year, so it's not exactly. But whereas the MSc courses, the classes are smaller, and so there is more one-to-one is not true, of course, but closer to a one-to-one relationship. And definitely lecturers know the names of all the students. That's for
Actually,
sure.
Isaac's the person to ask
Yeah,
about that.
of
The
course.
classes you were in?
So it's a mix, because there's some courses, like if on the slides that Des showed earlier, like stochastic simulation, data assimilation, there are some courses that are specifically only for master's students. And those classes are sort of maximum size have been like 15. And then one class I had was like 5 or 6. I think I know some people who had even less than that. So there's master's courses only for master's students, but there's also some of the other courses, like off the top of my head, PDEs or mathematical biology. They are available for undergraduate students in years 4 and 5 and master's students. And so what happens is you might have a bigger class of maybe 30 or 40 students, but then for 5 weeks over the 10-week course, you have an extra class just for master's students or 5th-year undergrads. And then those classes are much, much smaller, and you sort of do a bit of extra work and you have an extra assessment at the end. So it ranges, but master-specific ones are small, and then some of them are mixed with undergrads. But it's nice because you get to meet undergrads.
Yeah, of course. And Isaac, can I just stay with you at the moment? We've heard about your journey. We've heard about you doing your summer courses and going to do a PhD in September with Michela, which is great. What's the long-term plan for you? So you finish a PhD, you presumably then want to go into within the industry. We've heard from the different sectors Des mentioned earlier on. There's quite a few people that go into the automotive industry and very, perhaps farming. But what's the long-term aim for you?
It's a good question. So, I mean, I've got, obviously the PhD is maybe going to be, I've got funding for 3.5 years. So that's sort of still away in the future when I'm going to finish. I'm keeping my options open. I'm going to see, my opinions might change in 3 years,
Yeah.
but I really like teaching. I've done lots of teaching in the past, as teaching English and a tutor maths. So the idea to stay in academia is nice. And I would, the idea of lecturing is something that really appeals to me. But also my PhD is going to be about what Michela was talking about briefly, that was rewilding maths. And so this is sort of heavily linked to, that could be heavily linked to sort of environmental conservation sectors. So potentially I'll go into something like that. But if I'm being totally honest, I'm not 100% sure.
I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, Des, I was talking to one of your colleagues off air, and we were talking about mathematics, and the kind of stereotype that comes with the word mathematics is just purely numbers, and that's all we're going to talk about is numbers. But it's so broad now, isn't it? It's open to so many.
We do squirrels as well.
So actually, I do hope one of the purposes of my my presentation was really to not present maths just as numbers.
Yeah.
Behind every application I presented, there are, of course, equations and numbers, but there is a life to it. And I think that as a mathematician, one of really, if there is something that I could I could pass on to the next generation of mathematicians, is the idea that yes, there are the numbers and there are the equations, but the privilege of being a mathematician and being able to use those equations for such diverse applications and working in between different fields of science, that is unique. Because if you work on cells, if you are a microbiologist, you work on cells. But if you are a mathematician, because of the abstraction power of equations, you can use similar equations for such diverse applications, and it exposes you to a range of different things. And that's what some of us call the backyard. And I think it's one of the most exciting things of our job.
Excellent. At this point, if I can invite Sarah onto the call, because Sarah works within the admissions team, and we've got a few questions here which are very much aimed towards the kind of admissions process. So, Des, Michela, and Isaac, thank you for your time for now. And I'm just going to have a quick chat with Sarah about some of the questions that have come in. Sarah, I hope you're well. Some of the questions that have come in relate around funding, about the application process you might have seen already. One of the questions that's come in is, can I apply for 2 different programs? Can I apply for 2 different courses at the same time and then kind of have your options open as to what you want to choose? Is that an option?
Hi everyone. Yes, absolutely. You can put in as many applications as you wish for any programs at Heriot-Watt. So once you've put your details in the student portal, it saves them, and then you can use that to apply for different programs. The joy of our application form also has boxes on it where you can say, if I don't meet the criteria for this program, please consider me for, and you can also list other programs that way as well. So if you're on the cusp of perhaps not having the entry criteria, but you do meet for another program, you can pop both on that same form, or you can apply for two separately.
Excellent. And there'll be many people applying for perhaps this September, whether it's January start dates next year. But we're reaching that stage of the year where people will start applying for Achieving scholarships, Marshall scholarships, Commonwealth, whatever it might be that, students are using from a third party perspective. How does one go about applying for funding and looking for that if they've been declined for that? Is it done at the application stage automatically?
It's not done automatically, but we list a lot of our scholarships on our website. So this year we have over 27 scholarships available. You can have a look on the scholarships page of the Heriot-Watt website, and you can have a look at any that you might be able to apply for. There are some that would be applied automatically if you're from the EU, for example. This year we have an EU scholarship, and we have some overseas scholarships available as well. So there are multiple options for scholarships and funding, but the best place and the most up-to-date place is our website, because scholarships could be announced at any time. So right up to your enrolment, if you keep an eye out, you can apply for any scholarships we have available.
Excellent. And a couple more questions. I'm going to start with the pre-graduation or pre-applying. What's the admission process like? How competitive is it, especially for international students, given the popularity of the course and given how, its status is? How long can that process take, and what should a student expect that to look like?
Yeah, so as long as students upload their documents, such as their transcripts, we require a passport, but you can add that later. Your degree certificate, if you have it, if you're still sitting your degree, then as soon as you get your certificate. Right now, we're turning applications around in 3 to 5 working days, more towards the 3 days at the moment. Our aim is to really give the applicant the best journey, so to make sure that you know what your setup is, and also to allow you to plan a little bit as well, because if you're planning on moving from, say, Nigeria to the UK, that takes a lot of planning and time as well. So the quicker we can get your offer to you, the better. And if we have any queries about your application, we'd just be in touch via email.
And presumably it's all listed out in the application process in terms of what they need, because there will be many students watching now on demand, whenever it might be, that will say, what English level do I require? Can I do TOEFL? Can I do IELTS? To apply, do I need a certain summer school? And these things that you can all provide.
Yeah, absolutely. Our website has our entry requirements on it for both English and each program as well. There's a specific English page which actually lists per country, so you can see what we accept for your country, whether that's your high school certificate at a certain level, or IELTS, TOEFL, or other online tests that we now accept as well.
Super. There's been a couple of questions come in, I think, specific to programs. So we'll leave that for now. We will reach out to you afterwards. I'm just conscious of time. There has been one really good question is, do you have any good career connections post-graduation? Now, I've done webinars with Heriot-Watt for quite a while now over the last few months. And I think one of the things that struck me is the hand-holding exercise post-graduation and how your career service really excels. How important is that to a student when they're looking at coming to Heriot-Watt?
Massively important. We have one of the best career services, I would say. You can get in touch with them anytime, and they're always there to help with you through job applications, through interview preparations, through even just talking you through an industry, and helping you with industry connections as well. We've got some brilliant industry connections within the university. So yeah, it's a really big part of Heriot-Watt, and it's a really something that we pride ourselves on quite highly, is that career service that we do offer all of our students.
Excellent. Sarah, thank you for your time. I'm just conscious of time, so we're going to have to wrap things up. I really appreciate that. There have been a few people to say we've had to leave early, or I'm not going to catch the end. No problem at all. We are recording this live. This will be on demand, so hopefully this time tomorrow we'll be able to land this in all your inboxes. We've got all your email addresses. If you are watching on demand, please email webinars@postgradsolutions.com. But we will endeavour to reach out to you. Everyone will get a copy of this video that has registered. It's been a highly engaging, highly a successful session, and we hope to see you for the next Heriot-Watt webinar, which takes place tomorrow at the same time, which will be focused on actuaries. So if you are interested, there can be a slight perhaps crossover. So if you are interested, please head over to postgrad.com, find out more information. We look forward to seeing you again. But for now, a huge thank you to everyone in the background, Des, Isaac, Michela, and for Sarah at the end. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. All the best.